is often rumored to be one of the most violent county jails in the country. It's a dangerous spot. It's a cluster F. And carnales all want a piece of the pie because they understand now the type of money that's coming in. And Mexican Mafia members are greedy. If you can survive in Los Angeles County Jail, you can survive anywhere. And that's the truth. This is Los Angeles County Jail in a nutshell, folks. Hey folks, my name is Rene Enriquez and you are watching Uncensored. This is an issue that I've been thinking about for a long time. Long time. In fact, it's something the majority of us have some experience with, and it was life-altering for each of us. Well, I know it was for me. This is a place that most of us have been to that have been incarcerated, if you're from Southern California. This is a place that is often rumored to be one of the most violent county jails in the country. And it's the truth. I've seen some brutal stuff there. Los Angeles County Jail. And I remember first going there. It's a life-altering experience. I remember the processing center in IRC, Inmate Reception Center. This was at a time when they were packing us in, about 100 inmates to a small holding cell, no room whatsoever, and you'd be in IRC for up to 72 hours. In other words, you're not sleeping, you're not showering, you're not doing anything. If you got busted on a Friday, you're not going to get into a cell until Monday, maybe Sunday night. It was a brutal process. You'd come into IRC, you go into the first tank, and you'd move incrementally from tank to tank to tank until you finally got to the telephones and make a phone call. After that, you went into the strip out area, you stripped out, and then the shower area where they waited for you, and they had actual spray guns where they sprayed us with DDT. It was a white, creamy substance. The cops there, two cops would be sitting there in chairs with these spray guns, like for painting a car, filled with this chemical, and they make you bend over and spread your buttocks, and they would squirt you, armpits, your genitalia, and then they would yell out, bullseye. It was degrading. It was a degrading process. Eventually, they outlawed it. They no longer do it. And then you'd go into the shower and you wash, and you move on to the next holding area, which was waiting for a cell to be called out and moved out to a cell. And this process took sometimes 72 hours. And it was brutal. It was a brutal process. Everybody hated being booked into Los Angeles County Jail. But this is the old county jail. There's another facility that they have is now the Twin Towers Correctional Facility right across the street from the old county jail. Then there's also North County Correctional Facility. This is NCCF. And that encompasses all the Wayside East, North, Medium, South, all those facilities there. Los Angeles County Jail system is huge. I think it's the second largest in the country in terms of inmate population. So it's a big, big place. And when I was there, it was the old times where you got processed in, you got in your housing location, and you stayed there pending trial. Like you'd get to a module and you'd stay there. Like I was in 1700 and 1750. And the only time you got moved is if you went to the hole. There's always been a high rate of attrition in Los Angeles County Jail for inmates who were serving lesser time. They would end up getting shipped to Wayside and back to Los Angeles County Jail near a court date, and then back to Wayside. In fact, they even had HOJJ in my day. That's the Hall of Justice Jail, which is now in downtown Los Angeles on 1st Street. And I believe it is now the district attorney's office and the sheriff's office. They split the floors. But it used to house some notorious inmates. Charlie Manson was housed there. Cuate Grajeda was housed there. Mike Thompson was housed there. And it was an antiquated old jail. I personally have never been there. I never made it to HOJJ. I know a lot of people that had, but it was in transition at the time. They were shutting it down. So they had these major facilities. The Los Angeles County Jail system encompasses Men's Central Jail, Twin Towers, and all of the Wayside, NCCF, all those facilities there. And it's a huge population. But in my day, this was high power. High power was one section between 1700 and 1750, Abel, Baker, and Charlie Row. And it was a brutal, brutal place. It was continuous lockdown. There was no yard at this time. There was, for high power inmates, you didn't go out to the roof. You didn't go out to get exercise. You're allowed out once a day to make phone calls and take a shower. I think it might have been every other day that they ran showers. So you were allowed to make phone calls during that period of time. Other than that, you're locked in the cell. So you are allowed to make phone calls during that period of time. Other than that, you're locked in the cell. And the cells are like this. It's brutal, it's dirty, it's dark, and there were no televisions. Not like today, that like every couple cells has a television in front of it, and inmates get to watch TV. They didn't have that back in the day. The only place that had a TV that I was in was 2904, and that's like ultra high power. It's a little area that houses extremely severe management cases, right? But before I do, let me tell you about Buy Me a Cup of Coffee. We created a new page, buymeacupofcoffee.com at Uncensored Team. There's also a QR code that you can scan. It's a new way to support the channel. We have no affiliation with the past Buy Me a Cup of Coffee page, and I'd encourage all our viewers and supporters not to donate there. This is the only official site. In fact, on this page, we are now selling autographed copies of The Black Hand. Be sure and get your copy while supplies last. I will personally inscribe them with a personalized message and sign them personally and ship them out to you within 5 working days after your order. That is a guarantee. I was there, Guate was there, Joe Morgan was there, John Stinson was there. The individuals they feel they needed to control. That was the only place that had television. But other than that, it was straight cell time. And it was brutal. It was brutal. Extremely violent place. A lot of crazy hits went down there. A lot of people have been eliminated there at the county jail. And this isn't an exaggeration. The only reason you don't see it is because it doesn't hit the news. But people get eliminated in the county jail on a regular basis. It is just a reality. And in fact, I heard it said from a lot of sources that if you could survive in Los Angeles County Jail, you could survive anywhere. And that's the truth. In fact, when I was there, I stayed with a knife and a handcuff key in my mouth. My knife went everywhere. There was every form of contraband there. In fact, I smuggled in a 22 and 6 rimfire, a long round, a barrel, and a firing mechanism. That's another story, though. I'm going to tell that story soon. I had hacksaw blades, stilettos, you name it, we had it. Every form of drug, we had it there. It was like the clearinghouse, and it was a money-making opportunity. I never realized that until later. In fact, drugs were a regular thing there. It wasn't like, there were no drugs, that it was so secure. People were turning themselves into the county jail all the time. There were weekenders doing weekends. There were people that we had turning themselves in, bringing in clavo to us. Clavo means like a bundle of narcotics. So there was a lot of movement there. There was a lot of movement. But when I was there, it wasn't as organized as it is today. It wasn't. I mean, the Mexican Mafia controlled it. It was stomping grounds for the organization when I was there. And I was processed in the Los Angeles County Jail in 1990. My arrest date was January 10th, 1990. And I came straight to IRC. They walked me right through there, straight to high power. No stop, no go. Just walk right through. And I ended up on Baker Row, cell 1. But after that, I moved to Abel Row. These two individuals are there, Daniel Grajeda and John Stinson. That's the Daniel Grajeda, Cuate from La Rana, I talk about all the time. Because he's such a prolific guy in the politics and the history of the organization. Why would he not be prolific in this story as well? And that's John Stinson on the right from the Aryan Brotherhood, also known as Youngster. He's not a youngster anymore. In fact, that's a nice picture of him right there, because there are other pictures where he's looking a bit haggard. I think age is catching up with him. I don't even know what Guate looks like now. I knew back then in the county jail he was balding. He was balding, like his pate was completely bald, so he would grow hair on the left side of his head really long and comb it over. He had this comb over, dude. I swear it. He was rocking a comb over. He would part his hair on the left and comb it over to the right, and then flip it up a little bit so it would cover up his baldness. In fact, one time I was walking by. I think I went out to medical or visit or something, and they were running showers when I was coming back. I was returning from my appointment or my visit or whatever, and Cuate Grajeda happened to be in the shower. And I looked at him, and I saw the right side of his head was all tapered up, but the left side of his head had hair hanging down to his neck. But the right side, it wasn't. It was just all tapered up. So he would take that. It looked so comical. I wish I could have took a picture of him right then. I would have put it up right here. It looked ridiculous. But he would take that flop of hair and throw it on the top of his head and do what he did do it to make it look like hair. It was hair, but it was just from one side of his head. But anyways, these guys were running the county jail when I was there. John Stinson and Cuate Grajeda were arrested in 1979 for a murder that they committed on the streets. They were robbing a drug connection. John Stinson pulled the trigger, and they both went down for it. And they received life sentences. They both happened to be there on subpoena. In fact, I was with Cuate Grajeda in 1988 before I paroled. He came to our yard and he told me, I'm going to pick up a case and stay down there and make money. And that was his whole plan. He wanted to go down there and pick up a case and stay down there for as long as he could. And John Stinson, the same thing. He wanted to go down there. In fact, Guate had John Stinson subpoenaed. That's how close they were. I heard a bunch of rumors and people have made comments on the channel about why was Guate so beholden to John Stinson. I actually read somebody assert that John Stinson had smut on Guate in terms of paperwork. I have never seen that. I have never heard that in my career as a Mexican Mafia member. And I don't think John would have tolerated that. I'll say that right now. They were loyal friends. They just happened to be from the AB and the Mexican Mafia. Cuate gets down there. He gets subpoenaed by a camarada to attend his trial. And he ends up eliminating Chago from Florencia. He eliminates a carnal for no reason whatsoever. There was no reason to eliminate that carnal. In fact, he stabbed him multiple times in the visiting room in front of his wife. He came out of his handcuffs, Boom, 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 eliminates him. And Chago's last words was flipping off the deputies. Those were his last words. He did. It was his gesture. It was a gesture. He flipped off the deputies. And Guate did that solely so he could stay in the county jail. And nobody balked because Chago wasn't a well-known carnal. He was just made. And Guate used that same tactic that Fox used. He said, well, I didn't vote on him. He's not a carnal. So he stabbed him to death. John Stinson gets subpoenaed down and allows himself, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I'm remembering this from 20-something years ago, 30 years ago, John Stinson was found to be in possession of a shank. So they filed on him, and that was the reason he was staying there. And he represented himself in pro per. John was an intelligent man, intelligent man. He dwarfs me in intelligence. That's how smart the guy is. And I always liked him. Easygoing, smooth character, easy to talk to, very serious guy. He's a killer's killer. This guy is a serious killer. John Stinson's no joke. Neither squad, they're not jokes. Both of them are hogs, right? But they were in control of the county jail when I was there. They both share power. They both would introduce a black sticky substance. We all know what that is. And they would distribute it throughout the county jail. They had a system. John Stinson would give bindles to people on the mail-out program. The mail-out program was this. I'll give you a $50 bindle or a $20 bindle or a $30 bindle, whatever it is you're going to spend. And you have your family mail money to my P.O. box. And that's how they made thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. I don't know how much they made, but they made money because they controlled it. In fact, I worked for them. I distributed for them. I went and represented myself in Pro Per, and I was moved to 3133, which is the Pro Per module. It gave me access to the general population. I was up there with Jimmy Sanchez. This is a picture of Joey Gubby and Deborah Stinson. Deborah Stinson is John Stinson's wife, and that's a picture of her being arrested in her Garden Grove home. In fact, we were all indicted together because we were the people distributing the dope for Guate and John Stinson. Again, this is the old system. This is how it ran back in the day. One carnal had the dope. He was partners with the AB. They'd give me bundles of it, and I'd sell it. And then people on the main line would sell it. And they had all these people sending money to Deborah Stinson on the streets, picked it in the pink top. So they indicted us all. They didn't indict Guate or John Stinson, though. And they were the heads of the group. But they indicted the rest of us. Here's me and Joey Gubby at the arraignment for this case. They pulled us out of high power. They pulled us to court. They indicted us. They hit us with introduction of narcotics. I pled guilty to this case, actually. I pled guilty to this case. I think it was a 5-year sentence. And it didn't bother me. I mean, I was facing multiple life sentences for the eliminations I had participated on the streets. This was all during the time when I was fighting my murder cases in the county jail. So another 5 years didn't mean anything to me. I would have credit for time served by the time I left the county jail. It was just another court date I had to go to. But Joey Gubby was a good buddy of mine, actually. And I told you the story, how he got eliminated later on down the line. He started losing his marbles in Pelican Bay and was calling everybody out. And the guy was a hog. You can't take that from the guy. He never locked up. He got whacked multiple times. He kept wanting to fight everybody, and he was a dangerous man. And we all know that he got eliminated in some kind of dispute, and his body was dismembered and thrown into a shallow pond on a golfing course. In fact, some of you may remember the incident that occurred in Los Angeles County Men's Central Jail, where I attempted to eliminate the individual in the center. Salvador Mon Bonostro. The individual on the upper left is Benjamin Topo Peters. The individual on the lower left is Joe Morgan. And I am obviously on the right. This was an instance where, again, politics were flying in the county jail. This is how dangerous it was there. Like, eliminations were happening. Stabbings were happening left and right. Everybody had knives. Everybody had keys. And everybody was politicking. It was dangerous. I didn't know how dangerous it was until I got there. And I was then like, wow, this is crazy. I need a knife. I need more than a knife. I need a pistola. And I got a pistola. Another story for another time, though. There's a variety of ways to support the team, folks. There's watching the video in its entirety. There's hyping the video, leaving a comment, thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. There is a number of ways that this channel is supported by you. Like, one of the biggest ones we saw was the show out for the live, which we've decided to continue. Those are coming to you soon. We also have memberships for the channel. If you haven't become a member, become one now. So many of you may remember this, where we went into the attorney room and Benjamin Peters and I stabbed Salvador Bonostro about 30 times in front of about 50 deputy sheriffs. I'm just trying to give you a feeling for how violent and unpredictable and unstable Los Angeles County Jail was. And a lot of cardenales were in transition. Cardenales would get subpoenaed down, they'd come in for violations, then they'd leave as soon as they got processed. So it was always unstable, unless you were fighting a case. And I remember Mark Iquitos was already doing his time, but I think he came back on an appeal, because he had already been in prison. I had saw him in prison years before, and he was already doing, I believe, a life without sentence or or his sentence was going to be reduced to life with the possibility of parole. I believe I might be mistaken on that fact, but I remember I had seen Marquiquito somewhere else before that in Folsom State Prison. As a matter of fact, he was already doing a life sentence, and he was subpoenaed down there for his case. Everybody was down there for some reason, right? Obviously. So that's the old system, the old county jail, how violent it was, the people that were there. And then this guy came along, Mike Torres. A lot of people don't know that Mike Torres is the godfather of organizing the county jail into what it is today. Mike Torres, high school dropout, guy with no education, comes along and crafts a system to control all the inmates in the county jail and make money off of it. He creates the MESA system, he creates the tier reps, and he gets it going well. That's after we left. Mosca came down, he'd done this, and he established it very efficiently, very efficiently. It was then that Los Angeles County Jail became a money-making dynamo. Like, it's a lucrative spot. But here's the problem, that there's always jealousy and there's always transition. Somebody always wants to control that area. And the old rule was whichever carnal is there first controls it. That was the old rule. That was the old rule. Even under Mike's system. But he is the godfather and the founder of Los Angeles County Jail's financial generating system. It's a money machine. Los Angeles County Jail is a money making machine. And we're not just talking about the Men's Central Jail or Twin Towers. We're talking about all the county jail system. That's how well it was done. And that's the foresight that Mike Torres had. And nobody's ever given him credit for that. Nobody's ever said, hey, Mike Torres is the first guy to do this. Because everybody had hustle. That's a reality. Everybody had hustle. But nobody did it like Mike Torres. It wasn't a highly reticulated system until he got a hold of it. That's when he put his head to work. He got his people to work, and he made it into what it is today. The next guy to come along, because Mike leaves the county jail, obviously. He's got to go to prison. He's got to go do his time. So the next guy to come along was this guy right here, Lalo Martinez. Lalo from Lomas. Lalo from Lomas comes along and inherits the system that Mike Torres established. That's him with defense attorney Matt Fletcher. Matt Fletcher was indicted for tampering with a jury or something like that. Lalo comes along and he refines it even more. This is actually from the indictment binder, the trial binder that was used against Lalo Martinez in the grand jury. This is the system that he established. Pitches Detention Center East, Twin Towers, MCJ, NCCF, Pitches Detention Center North. Every module, every tier had a representative, and they answered to Lalo Martinez. In fact, Lalo Martinez created the kitty scam, where inmates collected money from other inmates that went to stores. Say you're a Southsider, Sureño, or a resident. You go to the store for $10. You were required to give up $1 of that commissary. Lalo Martinez would then have individuals collect all this commissary for their modules or their dormitories and sell those collections, individuals whose families were purchasing commissary for them online. Because that's a new development. They had these online purchases for care packages. So Lalo would circumvent all that and say, hey, is your family going to purchase you a care package this week? They would say, yeah. Well, how much are they going to spend? They're going to spend $25. Well, they would offer a better deal. We'll give you $35 for the commissary. Just send the money here to this location. Here's the address and here's the commissary. And it made a killing. They made a killing. Lalo perfected this. The carnal that inherited from Mike Torres perfected the kitty scam. In fact, he had quite the crew. These are the individuals who used to work with him. All the individuals. In fact, I testified in a couple of these trials. The woman in the center is Weta Barella. I remember testifying in the grand jury. And the individual on the second row, far right, is Joseph Hutchinson. I testified in his grand jury. But I remember those two distinctly. This is part of his crew. All of them were indicted. They were convicted. This is the crew that he had working with him. Lalo had the ability to reach out, and he had people, spokesmen. Lalo stayed off of the phone. He stayed off of the phone. He had a guy named Gargoyle Ranquillo from Whittier, who would make all his phone calls for him. There are very few occasions that Lalo was caught on a recorded line. And I've run those for you in the Wiretap series, but very few occasions. He was pretty smart. He knew about law enforcement recordings. He knew about wiretaps, and he was very circumspect about it. And he used all these cutouts, all these people that would collect money and release money and collect commissary and sell commissary. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, because this only reflects commissary. This is just one aspect of all the scams in the county jail. There's hot money, there's drugs, there's extortion, there's all this stuff that goes on. There's thirds. There's all these things that go on that Lalo gets a cut of. This is one carnal that refined the template that Mike Torres Mosca established. So there's a continuous transition of power in the county jail. Very volatile, extremely political place. And it's not an easy place to be in. It's not an easy place to be in because everybody's jealous. Everybody wants a piece of that pie and you're controlling it. This was how Lalo Martinez cleansed his money. Lalo Martinez had a number of people who would come visit and take money off inmate accounts because they had the inmate trust withdrawal system there. All you had to do was fill out a little piece of paper and have it signed by the deputy, and he would give it to your visitor, and then that visitor would go to the cashier and they would issue cash money to the recipient of that withdrawal. It was an ideal thing. In fact, at this time, they were still handling cash money in the county jail as well. Because when your visitor used to come see you, they'd give you a wet 40. They can give you two $20 bills or whatever denominations. You could have a total of $40 every visit. And the cops would receive the money from your visitor. And you could see your visitor hand it to him. He would dip it in some kind of solution to ensure there were no drugs in there. Then he would hand you the wet money. And they used to call it the wet 40. This is the system he used to clean all that money and release all that money. He washed it through all these inmate trust accounts and to these people on the streets. In fact, the totals that he released and collected between June 4th, 2007 and June 4th, 2008 are reflected in yellow on the bottom. That's $342,000. $342,000 in 1 year. From the commissary alone. That's from commissary. Now, call me crazy, but look at the amounts reflected in inmate accounts there. One inmate, $20,000. One inmate, $28,000. Another inmate, $16,000. Another inmate, $21,000. Those are inmates that are having money put on their accounts and then releasing it to the person designated by Lalo to go pick up the money. That's serious money for anybody, even by today's standards. $350,000 is a lot of money. There are some people with double doctorates or master's degrees, highly educated professionals, successful at their careers, not making that kind of money yearly. And here's a guy who's a high school dropout, inherited the system from Mosca that was previously ran by John Stinson and Cuategrajeda and makes it into a financial powerhouse. And again, remember this. This was only the kiddie scam money, the money from the commissary. So Lalo comes down to the county jail. He gets indicted on this kiddie scam. There's 12 individuals. They're all convicted. Lalo overdoses and does not answer the charges. But he would have been tried on this next case. This is Donald Schubert, an individual that Lalo Martinez ordered eliminated because he believed he was responsible for the death of his brother. In fact, it was the wrong guy. Donald Schubert was the wrong guy. And Lalo was pending trial here. In fact, Angel Valencia testified at his first trial, and Lalo got a mistrial or a hung jury because Angel Valencia was such a terrible witness. I mean, I've shown you snippets and clips about Angel Valencia, and I've told you stories about how he comes across to people. He's not jury relatable. If you look at his personality, he's offensive, arrogant, angry, all the things the jury doesn't like about people. Something about juries is that they have to be relatable. They have to be able to communicate with them. Because when you're testifying, you're not testifying for the district attorney or the defense attorney. You're testifying for the benefit of the jury. And a good witness understands that. Lalo would have been convicted on this case, and he would have been convicted of the kiddie scam. There's no doubt that he was going to get convicted. And he was going to serve the rest of his life in prison. And I told you the story about how Lalo wanted to work with law enforcement at some point. But that transition between Lalo and Mosca was successful for Lalo until he died. And then came this guy, old Fox Tapia, Uncle Fester. Uncle Fester strikes again. Look at him. Me? Yeah, you. Uncle Fester gets there. He comes down from the feds, and he's the only cardenal there. He assumes control of the county jail. And I've run you a ton of calls on Uncle Fester and diarrhea of the mouth. He's all over the place with his messages, getting people indicted. In fact, he gets indicted on Operation La Halle and Operation. He gets federally indicted twice. He gets federally indicted twice. This case turns into nothing. The case he's brought down on. A conspiracy to commit murder. He gets indicted for Operation La Halle, which is the Familia Michoacana case, the cartel case. Then he gets indicted on Dirty Thirds, which is the county jail scheme that he also assumed control of. And I don't know how lucrative his money was. I don't have the stats on that, but I know it was a lot of money. He was making a lot of money in the county jail, and he was getting politicked on. And so was Lalo. Lalo was getting politicked on as well. Everybody in these positions gets politicked on. Like I said, there's a lot of jealousy, a lot of anger. Lalo had offended Daryl Nidal Baca by having his nephew slapped in the county jail. Lalo lied about it in a kite to Daryl, saying that it was Cisco and Perico, Periquito, Periquito, that did it, right? But it was Lalo. Lalo was captured on tape telling a paid informant that he was in the county jail. He didn't care whose family it was, and he did have that done to Nidal's nephew. And I know Nidal. Nidal wasn't going to say anything. Nidal wasn't going to politic. Nidal was just going to eliminate him when he got the chance. And that's how it was going to be, because he slapped his nephew. He had his nephew assaulted. And that's like a sin of sins, right? You don't mess with the family members. You don't mess with family members. The mob doesn't. And I know people say, well, what about this and what about... No. It's a hard-pressed rule that family members are unaffected by mafia politics. And that's a reality. Unless they're in the game. Unless they're in the game. So Fox inherits the county jail, and he runs it to the ground. He gets everybody indicted, just like Lalo did. Mike Torres never got indicted because he was slick about it. Daniel Grajeda and John Stinson didn't get indicted because they were slick about it. But Fox Tapia gets everybody indicted. Everybody. Then these two come along. That's Daniel Peña from Hazard and Joker Gonzalez from Hazard. Joker comes along. He's subpoenaed down for something and ends up at the county jail and wants a piece of it. Right? He wants to control the county jail. It's good money. It's really good money. In fact, there's a call here in which they specifically talk about the county jail. Danny Pina is going to be hooked up on a three-way call with Joker Gonzalez.
Hello, tío.
Hey, yeah. Hey,
Tío, hey.
all right now.
What's up, it's hard to reach you guys.
Man, it's been harder and harder, I was calling you.
Hey, I was telling Homeboy, real quick, just to get into this, I was telling Homeboy right now, look, that I talked to Mosca. Mosca said that whatever you have going, it's going to be covered and respected, right?
Did you hear that? Danny Boy says he spoke with Mosca, the same Mosca Torres that organized this whole county jail system. Danny Boy spoke with him and said that he would cover and respect any aspect of the county jail that Joker has. Danny's a smart man here. Listen to his logic.
He said, look, but you know what he said? He understands the big headaches there, and he's willing to deal with all the headaches and the heat. That's what he told me, Holmes. No?
Right.
Now, I tell you, look, you know what, for the things, like I was telling 24 right now, for the things that we're trying to build out here, that place brings a lot of damn heat and headaches, Holmes. You know?
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of, because there's all kinds of switchovers because people move through there all the time, Holmes. And
that is exactly what I've been saying. There's a lot of political infighting. There's a lot of transition. There's a lot of attrition. That's exactly what Danny Boy is saying right now. He's telling Joker this.
Look, I mean, it's a good spot, Holmes, but you got to deal with, you got to put out a lot of fire, Holmes, and it's a constant drain on your attention, Holmes, So look, if you feel it's worth it, it's cool, Holmes, I'll be in there with you, but I just don't want my name out there like that because whoever name's out there, it's going to be tossed up in the middle of all them damn people that investigate that.
Yeah, see, that's the thing right there. Because I've been there, right? I've been there like about 6-7 months already, right? And I've always had people in place that insulate my name from there. I mean, they're the ones that be up there like RS or whatever. And so my name hasn't really been in there. Nobody even knows my name up there. I mean, as long as you got somebody in place that keep you insulated from there, you're good. I mean, keep you insulated from there, you're good. I mean,
Joker don't want to relinquish nothing. He thinks he can stay out of the limelight and he has people in place. He just doesn't want to lose that money. That's what it is. So this call is extensive and they talk about the county jail and control of it. Danny Boy is in favor of letting Mosca control it. So after Fox Tapia leaves, Danny Boy and Joker assume a piece and Mosca assumes control again. It's a big place. A lot of cardenales want a piece of it. Many cardenales are transitioning through there and it leads to politics. This always leads to infighting in politics. Danny Boy said it himself. This is a lot of headaches. There's a lot of heat. So much heat that it cost Mosca his life. One of the contributing factors to his elimination was the county jail. Mosca ran it efficiently. Mosca kept the lion's share of the money, but profit sharing wasn't everything it should be. That's Mosca there in the trauma center. That's him after they performed an autopsy on his deceased body. So you see what the county jail brings. County jail is a cluster F. It's a dangerous spot. And it's dangerous if you're in a position of power and control of the county jail. There's a high rate of attrition, high rate of influx, high rate of fluctuation, high power politics are going on there. And carnales all want a piece of the pie because they understand now the type of money that's coming in. And Mexican Mafia members are greedy. Today, this is the structure in the county jail. But only 4 Mexican Mafia members run it. Second from the left, Victor Psycho Gallegos. Fourth from the left, Gabriel Sleepy Huerta. Fifth from the left, Raul Molina. And the lower row, first on the left, Javier Marquez, gangster from the Avenues. Those 4 individuals now collectively run the county jail. There are 6 Mexican Mafia members there, and their pictures are bordered in green, but only 4 control the county jail and divide the money among other Mexican Mafia members that keep their lion's share for themselves. There are also shot callers in different buildings, but those are the 4 Mexican Mafia members currently in control of the county jail. You see the volatility of that place. And it's true what they say, if you can survive there, you can survive anywhere. This is Los Angeles County Jail in a nutshell, folks. Hotbed of mob activity, hotbed of violence, lucrative place to control if you're a mafia member, but extremely dangerous. As always, drop a comment, hit the thumbs up, hit that hype button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed, become a member, join our Patreon, buy the team a cup of coffee. Hope you enjoyed the episode, folks. With that said, I'm out. Have a nice day. Peace.